SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Good morning and welcome to the iGaming Daily, brought to you by Optimove, live from a bustling exhibition floor on the final day of the first SBC Summit Malta. And yeah, what an event it's been so far. We have two SBC stalwarts to join us to tell us about their conference so far and what they've made of this evolution as well. Craig Davis, the senior content specialist. Is that your title?
I don't know where that's come from. That's completely
interesting role.
Senior media manager. I don't know if it's a promotion or a demotion. I've not quite made my mind up yet. But.
Well, more importantly, Craig, how has your conference been so far? You had a good one, just briefly.
It's really good. I always like the atmosphere at this event.
Nice. And Dennis Algreen. Dennis, you're the king of marketing.
That's a bit much, but okay. I'll take marketing director.
I'm using this podcast to crown you the king of marketing. Have you enjoyed the show so far?
I have very much. I think a lot of things has worked really well for this one. I think broadening the scope was a good idea.
Yeah.
And we've certainly been able to kind of raise the roof in terms of both attendance and kind of the engagement with this event. I think it feels like, this is home for it, right?
Yep, 100%. It really feels like a home. It feels like the whole of the iGaming community, whether that's sports betting, payments, a lot of crypto here. I've noticed a lot of crypto discussions.
A lot of crypto.
They descend on the conference. But before we do get into that, and I don't want to make this kind of a type of night out debrief, we've got to talk about that party last night because, oh my word, it was spectacular, right?
That was cracking. I'm normally not much for this particular music scene, but I also have to recognize a spectacular show. That was very good fun. We had a very nice but long night.
Yeah, and some of those moves that were being bossed by everyone in the industry, they were phenomenal. And I've got to say as well, Galantis was fantastic. And then I would love to give a shout out to whoever it was came on after him. It was a hell of a job to follow up there and keep the party going. But he injected a new lease of life into the party, and people stayed late.
Absolutely,
into
it
the
adds
evening.
a bit of pizzazz. And I think these are not just DJs; these are entertainers, right? These are showmen. So when you get them from the top of the tier list, from Tomorrowland or whatever the big festivals are, you get something extra aside from just a dude behind a podium looking like he's rummaging around with buttons. You get an actual entertainer and a big show. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it really did feel like a spectacular show. It was brilliant and fitting for what we've had over these 2 days as well. Craig, I know you've moderated a panel this week. You've been involved in a lot of panels, taken part in a lot of interviews. What have you noticed from the show floor?
I think one of the big takeaways for me is how much people are speaking about the black market. I feel like I've never heard it mentioned as much on a show floor. Of course, we've had dedicated panels to it, and I mean, let's be honest, it shouldn't be something that's hidden. Like, it's a very real thing. It's a massive part of the industry, whether people like it or not. So we shouldn't be afraid of having these conversations, but it's the differing opinions as well. with a lot of things, like I can do my job with slot suppliers, and some of the messaging could be the same. You speak about the markets and the slots that are coming up. With the black market, you get from the one end of it needs to be completely wiped out. We need to do what we can to wipe it out. To the other end saying, hold on a minute, we should be collaborating with these people. There's actually some genuinely very clever, experienced people in this part of the industry. So why are we not trying to utilise that in some kind of collaboration to...
And transitioning with the overall goal of transitioning that black market to the grey market to the regulated market, right? And I think that's a consequence of, and credit to what you do, Dennis, of getting so many people here from such different perspectives. It creates this conversation, such a wide scope of conversation, and you're not in this echo chamber. You learn from different elements of the industry, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, as Craig said rightly, the only way forward is collaboration and communication. And we need to make sure that the different aspects of the industry are represented. That's our role in the industry, right? Is to make sure that we provide a platform for that connection. And only then can we move towards what we think the market should be and how they should be set up and regulated, that I think that's the only way forward.
Okay, it shouldn't be taboo. That's the thing I think I want to say on that, the final point, if you will. Like, it's felt like a taboo subject. It's like you've got to speak about it in hushed tones in a corner. Yeah. It shouldn't be. Similar to like responsible gambling, for example, which I'm sure we'll get onto, as I've moderated a panel on it that isn't them. Similar with that, like you've seen the conversations come up more and more over the years. Certainly 8 years later this year that I've been in this, I know similar for yourself, Joe. You've seen those conversations develop more and more, and it's getting more a platform, whether it's got the platform it should worldwide at the minute. I'm sure the people who work in it full-time would tell you not. But it shouldn't be something that's shied away from, because it is very real.
Well, tell us about that panel, Craig. You were moderating a panel yesterday on responsible gambling, or a workshop, which I've got to say, credit to the conference team, by the way. Little side note, it's been fantastic to be part of the workshops this time and see how they navigate conversation differently to a panel. The mic moves around the room, everybody's involved. It's a real open discussion. They are just fantastic to be part of, and underpin the importance of that conversation that we're talking about so much, that free conversation. But yeah, your workshop yesterday on responsible gambling, what were the key takeaways? How did it go down?
It was a really interesting discussion. I mean, I don't think there's any shame in saying this, as two of my panelists announced this while we was mid-conversation, that we didn't actually do any prep because we couldn't get the time. So we had a little chat beforehand, and very experienced people from L&L Europe and Betson and the Responsible Gambling Council and Epic Global Solutions, and some really experienced people from panels, seen all but one on panels before, so I knew what I was getting. But we just kind of like, well, should we just see how we go? So it made for a bit more of a free-flowing discussion. To your point, I've done the first panel of the show with a keynote speaker on the main stage last year, to a big packed room, to now in one of the workshop rooms. Is something more, feels more personable. Feels like you're actually having a discussion with the people in the room rather than talking at them. It's quite nice. And people, even though they actually have to put their hand up and ask questions, people weren't afraid to. And it was quite nice. But takeaways, again, the black market came up, and again, not in a kind of argumentative way, but a couple of maybe slight differing opinions. But the black market came up. One thing we have to highlight, though, is, I mean, with Epic, I'm sure everyone knows what they do, and you know what you're getting with Epic, but it always hits home when you start either in the room or alongside them on a panel or wherever it may be, to hear them talk about their story.
Yeah, the importance of lived experience, right?
Always, and you hear them, and the first question, just on like the current state of responsible gambling, to kind of get that foundation, it was Craig Cornforth for Epic who was on the panel, and he took it first, straight off the bat into it, about his journey, and said about his past and how he'd kind of embezzled all this money and nearly committed suicide, and just straight off the bat, that was where we was at from the get-go. But it was a really good discussion about kind of how do you heighten it, and how do you work alongside these players, what's next, and again to cite Epic, to a lot of the times asking these questions about like the safer gambling tools and stuff, and how effective, what do we do? And it's like, well, I can't really answer because I never used them. To hear him saying things like that is a bit mad. But I've done a lot of panels, and I've never, this one was an hour as well, we have a standard 45 minutes, this one was an hour. I've never experienced a quicker hour moderating a panel in my whole life.
Just because the conversation was so flowing and so...
I think it helped not having a big clock ticking down right in front of me. But it just flowed. It was nice. It was good to have the experience, and straight off the bat there was so many different discussions we could go down. And one comment we got at the end, which was quite pleasing, was it didn't follow the path that they expected. It went down a few different avenues that weren't expected, and it made for a bit interesting, because it didn't, like, we didn't jump into tech and AI, for example.
Well, that's one of the connotations, the positive connotations of being in a workshop room with an engaged audience. You can't really plan what's coming next because it's coming from the crowd, and they're going to dictate where it goes, which is, I think speaks to the idea that the panel is designed by the audience and is what they want. So that's, a great thing, I think. And, the importance of lived experience, as you say, vital, I think, when it comes to responsible gambling. But we're going to take a quick break, and We'll be back, talk a little bit more about panels and maybe even look ahead to what's coming in the future for SBC events.
Join us for SBC Summit Malta from the 10th to the 12th of June. With over 75 exhibitors and more than 250 expert speakers, our expanded agenda covers all aspects of the European gaming industry. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
Welcome back. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about one of the other panels that I was on yesterday, around a couple of, there's so many good panels, it's hard to pick one, but I was part of a live Beyond the Reels that was, it was fantastic. We got to see behind, really look under the bonnet, lift the bonnet on the process of designing a slot, building characters, how you remain creative when you're designing a game and a feature for a small mobile screen. So yeah, that was brilliant. Thanks to those that were part of that. And also something on Tuesday too, around the UAE. There've been so many good discussions, but it was interesting to hear the UAE mentioned, a market that I'm sure is going to be discussed in the future. We had the Digital Day, the SBC Digital Day, about the Middle East, a real focus market. And Dennis, this event is fantastic, but it serves as the perfect appetizer. Is this fair to say? Serves as the perfect, and I love an appetizer.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite parts of the
as
meal.
much as the next guy. Yeah, of course.
It serves as a perfect appetizer for what looms in the distance.
The big one.
The big one.
Yeah.
The big one indeed.
SBC Summit in Lisbon in September. I mean, this is obviously, and it's important for us that the event has value and utility on its own, but obviously there are so many things that we could do here, and then they're done differently for a larger event like Lisbon, right?
How we do, because it does feel like I come here and I don't get a small version of Lisbon. I get this unique event that is very different. So I want to make that clear when I say it's the appetizer.
I think the way the content is structured, the way the event works and flows overall is different. I mean, obviously, coming into Lisbon, this was our experience last year as well, is you've all of a sudden got such a big thing that just trying to navigate it, and there's no way that anybody can even experience everything they want to experience during that week. Here, there's a slight change in direction, or a different direction in terms of especially how the content, for instance, is mapped out. What is it that's here? Give it its own unique kind of identity, and make sure that, okay, what is it that this particular community wants most? We're to serve the industry, right? So we want to make sure that this has a lovely combination, I think, now of these very, very tangible kind of skill ups in workshops, and kind of really focused nitty-gritty content is really good, and discussions into what some people would call nerdy stuff, but we love that, right? Everybody wants to nerd in their area. I think that's really fantastic. And still have some room for the larger leadership pieces. I heard a lot of good about our opening panel with some of the brightest minds in the industry.
I've truly felt that, by the way, that nitty-gritty, that nerdy stuff, as you say. Yeah. Lots of talk about MiCA, European crypto regulations, Bill 55, these types of things that are, they're deeply entangled, entrenched in this region, and in an intimate setting. And then I guess you expand on that a little bit for Lisbon, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Lisbon, because it also has the size and scale, it kind of allows for both, right? It allows for, obviously, a much bigger exhibition than we do here on the island. We have a venue that's set up and geared for that, and interest is high. But then that's, again, what part of gives these events their own unique identity. Even though we've now assembled them under the SBC Summit brand, to give people a sense of expectation of quality that they can feel between both events. But I think Lisbon has room for everything. That's kind of the joy of that, right? It means that there's room for both the nitty-gritty stuff, and there's a lot of room for even stuff that we can't really do here, right? In Lisbon, we can do massive headliners on a super stage. We had Tony Hawk last year. We've already confirmed and announced Gary Vaynerchuk for this year, something that I'm seeing a lot of buzz about in parts of both kind of the crypto blockchain as well as marketing. He's quite prolific. So I think that's somebody that people will want to just straight up go just to see in some aspects. And then hopefully they get a chance to experience everything else that massive event now has to offer.
Even just a regional focus, like here, you know, it's quite European centric. When you expand out, you get to have full conferences essentially in Lisbon on various regions. So yeah, even just a regional focus is something that's
and I think important
quite
to mention in that aspect that is also why, because if you then go to Lisbon and you have a certain region that you're interested in, normally you would have potentially found that content that you're interested in and the networking scattered kind of a little bit over a large area, either in time-wise or even geography, because let's face it, it's a big space. And I think what we're introducing now with this global markets and emerging market stages really provides a framework for people that say, okay, do you know what? I'm currently working with a massive focus in Asia. Okay, well, here is a whole day on one stage dedicated to those regions, and at the same time combined with very convenient networking sessions for each of the interested markets right next door. Right? This is really where I can take in the whole event, and then I've got my own little focus that I want to take in, and that can be done right then and there.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well, because pre-Americas I did a podcast with Aidan, and he said one of the things is it's not going to be exclusively insightful to that audience. So obviously we had the two regions at the Americas event, but there weren't many people that would go there and only learn from the one half. You would, if you were a North America focused delegate, there was still so many things to learn from the other side of the conference, and I think that's very much the case in Lisbon. You can go there, with a focus on Africa, but you're still going to pick up so much knowledge from around the rest of the conference.
And I think also really, really important that the audience, even when sessions aren't necessarily mapped out like workshops where they're kind of engaging pieces, but then if you, at the same time, you walk out of the conference room and you can now have a conversation with the speakers and the other listeners following that up, you'll probably learn as much from that as you will from the session itself, right? Because through conversation is how we acquire the specific knowledge we're after.
Yeah, for sure. And I could do with that big clock in front of me because I'm not 100% sure on the time. But just one more thing about the two conferences is that sets them apart, that's fairly obvious, is the two locations. Both unique, both bring their own flair. It's so good to be back in Malta. I love Malta. Such a beautiful country, such great people, and such a hub for iGaming too. And then Lisbon, obviously, I'm not sure there are many cooler cities in Europe than Lisbon. So, maybe Manchester, that's about it.
Yeah, I did look throughout our research. We found out Lisbon has won 5 awards for the world's city destination in a row. It's a massive popular city, and I think it's congested. It's not nearly as big as I thought. The actual population is only 550,000, which means that it's quite accessible to see the sites. Excellent food culture, very hospitable, and affordable, right? It does matter for everybody. We need to go and take it in. So it will come with costs. So don't mind that it's not the premium price that some other cities might have. And I do think I think more so than anything else, we moved that event to Lisbon, and mainly also because we thought that both the accessibility of the destination and the venue has such a good setup for how we want to do an event. Well, what sort of experience do we want to provide for people walking through the door, right? It's really, really difficult to find these locations where we can do that combination. I would say quite unique combination of networking, a big outside the industry headliners on massive stages in the arena, and then we still have space to put the right conference stages on there as well, without the noise pollution and the other things that you want to make sure of are there to deliver quality content.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Excited to enjoy a final night in Malta, and then look ahead to Lisbon. And on Lisbon headliners, last year's headliner, Merab Dvalishvili, I hope I've said the name right. Merab Dvalishvili defended his bantamweight crown last Saturday. So shout out to obviously a good omen, good form off the back of a headline in the SBC Summit in Lisbon. So, yeah, congratulations to Marab, and enjoy the rest of your conference, lads. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate everyone for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.